We've spent a lot of time slandering McLaren this year, so let's just do it one last time to put a nice bow on the season. Should McLaren have wrapped up the title sooner?
I mean, I think probably. Um, we spent a whole podcast episode talking about, how the championship would have looked different if McLaren and Lando hadn't thrown away all these points, with papaya rules and everything that happened. And you got to think that yes, they would have wrapped it up sooner, without that happening, without mistakes being made and that kind of thing. But it was a great season, and I totally agree. I think it turned out the way it should have with McLaren winning. I mean, majority of the year they did have the fastest package, and Ferrari was, I think, right there, and then for a majority of the season, Red Bull was a step down. So, I think it played out the way that it should have. But I do think it was definitely possible for them to wrap it up sooner. And should they have done that? Probably, yeah. But they still pulled it out of the bag, and that's what's going to happen, or that's what's going to count on paper, and it's going to be written in the history books. So,
Yeah, it doesn't really matter for us to sit here and be like, they should have won it 4 races ago. It's still a win. They still won the Constructors' Championship this year. So this is all just an imaginary situation. Yeah, they probably should have won it sooner. I mean, they did throw away a lot of points just with decisions that they made. I think one that speaks to how quick of a car that they built this year and upgraded throughout the season, that like they could make all of these mistakes and still win the Constructors' Championship. And even though we had a fight that went down to the last Grand Prix. It was still a stretch for Ferrari to win at this Grand Prix. McLaren, could have one driver taken out and still fairly comfortably win the Constructors' Championship. And so I think that is impressive for them. And also, I think, we just talked about Ferrari having a good shot at it next year. I think McLaren should be feeling confident about their shot to go back to back next year. I think they learned a lot this year. I think if they find themselves in similar situations in the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship, I think they will have learned from the mistakes of this year. And I think that will put them in a good position to maybe handle themselves better should they be in those scenarios again next season.
yeah, I definitely agree, and I think that what's exciting about next year is it's going to be, I think, this competitive right out of the gate. We had to wait, what, maybe 5, 6 races before it really got competitive. I mean, it was closer at the front of the field at the beginning, but I mean, Max still won, what, like 7 of the first 10 races or something like that. So Red Bull had a solid lead in the constructors, and Max obviously had a solid lead in the drivers' championship. Um, but I think next year it's going to be right out of the gate. You're going to have maybe, I don't know, 5 drivers who probably are all capable of winning the drivers' championship next year if things go in their favor. And then obviously you've got the top 3 teams, and who knows which direction Mercedes goes next year. But and then you have Adrian Newey at Aston Martin, who will have probably not a ton of influence on that car, but I mean,
By
there's
the end
also
of
a
the year, he
possibility.
will. I'm sure there'll be some upgrades he has some influence on by the end of it.
Yeah, and I think it's also possible he walks in there, takes one look at the car, and says, "Absolutely not. We're not doing that," and just tweaks one little thing that makes a big difference. So, w- I mean, it's just going to be so competitive, and I'm so excited for next season, which we're actually not that far away from, which is crazy. So.
Now I know less than 100 days till the Australian Grand Prix, which means car launches and testing and probably 2026 silly season rumors are right around the corner. So even though we are mourning the loss of Formula One, it's really not going anywhere, and there's plenty to keep us occupied this off season. It is just classic Formula One, isn't it, to get to where the field is tight and are having this incredible period of Formula One and we only get one more year of it, and then we're gonna have regulation changes, and one team is probably just gonna waltz away with it in 2026. So cherish it while it lasts, folks, because this is incredible Formula One right now.